people of God. This is not an ordinary month. This is not just another season. We have entered a divine appointment, a moment etched into the scrolls of time before you were born. August 2025, not by chance, not by human design, but by the hand of the Almighty, is a month of shift, of shaking, of supernatural movement. Heaven has decreed it, and now we must walk in it. When God declares a shaking, it is never without purpose. It is never random. It is never reckless. The shaking is divine, intentional, and surgical. It is the holy hand of the Almighty reaching into the natural to awaken the sleeping, realign the drifting, and remove what no longer serves His purpose. In August 2025, we will begin to witness such a shaking, not just in the earth, but in the very foundations of people's lives, spiritually, emotionally, financially, and relationally. It may come as disruption, as loss, as confrontation, or as exposure. But make no mistake, the shaking is not to punish, but to purify. God shakes what is temporary so that what is eternal may remain. He disturbs what is comfortable so that what is holy can emerge. In Hebrews 26:27, we are reminded of this very truth. Once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. This is not metaphor. It is a spiritual law. And those who are sensitive to the Spirit will understand that this shaking is mercy, not wrath, because it draws us out of the fog and back to the flame. Too many have built their identity on the applause of others, their security on financial success, their peace on fragile relationships, and their hope on temporal systems. But when God begins to shake, He is saying, I love you too much to let you stay grounded in what will not last. There's an urgency in the Spirit to return to the solid rock, to build again on foundations that cannot be moved. Take the story of a businesswoman named Carla, for example. By 2022, she had achieved everything she thought would fulfill her: a thriving company, global recognition, and a growing bank account. But underneath it all, she had slowly drifted from her calling, ignoring the quiet whisper of the Holy Spirit for the louder demands of success. She knew God, but she no longer followed Him closely. Then came a sudden crisis in 2024, a market collapse, a betrayal from within her own team, and the loss of nearly everything she had built. For months, she grieved what felt like total ruin. But in the silence that followed, God met her in a deeper way than He ever had before. Stripped of her idols and distractions, she discovered a richness in His presence she had never tasted. Through prayer, surrender, and repentance, she found her purpose again, not in building an empire, but in building the kingdom. Now, in 2025, she leads a network of faith-driven entrepreneurs committed not only to profit, but to purpose, and she'll be the first to tell you, the shaking was God's greatest mercy. He broke what was counterfeit to give me what was eternal. Her story is a prophetic picture of what God is about to do in many lives. What the enemy meant for evil, God is already flipping for good. This August, God will allow certain structures to collapse, not to destroy lives, but to rescue them. Expect foundations to crack where compromise has been buried. Expect facades to fall where image has replaced intimacy. Expect heaven's roar to silence the whispers of manipulation and fear. But in that shaking, God is also awakening. He is stirring the hearts of His people to rise in consecration. He is calling His sons and daughters to examine their lives, not with shame, but with reverence. Because when everything is shaken around you, only one question matters: what have you built your life on? Your education, your followers, your position, your marriage, your good intentions. If it is not Christ, if it is not His word, His truth, His ways, then it will not stand. But that is not cause for fear. It is a call to rebuild. The shaking is the sound of grace making room for glory. God is separating the remnant from the religious. He is drawing a line between those who look busy for Him and those who burn with Him. He is pruning the branches that bear no fruit, not to punish the tree, but to make way for deeper roots and a greater harvest. This is your invitation, not just to survive the shaking, but to thrive in it. Let it drive you to your knees. Let it refine your worship. Let it reignite your prayer life. Let it expose every place where you settled for shallow waters, and let it thrust you into the deep. Because in the deep, the shaking does not destroy, it reveals. It reveals what cannot be moved. It reveals who is truly planted in righteousness. It reveals who can still lift their hands in worship when the music stops, when the income dries up, when the crowd walks away. These are the ones who will rise in August 2025, not because they avoided the shaking, but because they embraced it. Because they allowed it to strip away what was false and fan into flame what was real. You see, God's shaking is not the enemy's victory. It's God's strategy. And if you belong to Him, you have nothing to fear. You may be shaken, but you will not be broken. You may bend, but you will not be uprooted. You may cry, but your spirit will stand firm. The storm may rage, but your house, built on the rock, will remain. So do not resist what God is doing in this hour. Don't cling to what He's trying to remove. Don't mourn the breaking of what was never meant to last. Lift your eyes, child of God. The shaking is here, but so is your breakthrough. So is your rebirth. So is your divine repositioning. And when the dust settles, You will see clearly what you could not see before, that God was never tearing you down. He was establishing you on ground that cannot be moved. In August 2025, we will step into a season where God will begin to reveal what has long been hidden, both in the world around us and within our own hearts. The time for secrets is coming to an end. This is not a vague idea, nor is it simply a call to awareness. It is a prophetic announcement that the light of heaven will begin to pierce through the veils of darkness, and what has been concealed, covered, or buried, whether by pride, fear, deception, or convenience, will be exposed by the hand of God, not to shame, but to save. Luke 18:17 tells us clearly, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open." This isn't just a spiritual principle, it is a divine promise. In this coming month, lies will no longer hold power, masks will no longer conceal motives, and appearances will no longer protect hidden agendas. But this unveiling is not only for leaders or public platforms. It begins in us. It begins in the quiet places, in the motives of our decisions, in the shadows of our thoughts, in the cracks beneath our smiles. God is not exposing to condemn. He is revealing to heal. He is confronting what we've tried to ignore so he can restore what we thought was lost. He is removing the infection, not to wound, but to cleanse. The gentle mercy of God is often most fierce when it comes in the form of revelation, because he knows that as long as we're hiding, we're not free. We may be functioning. We may be performing. We may even be successful, but we're not free. And the Lord is jealous for his people to walk in wholeness, not behind the curtain of fear or image or unresolved pain, but in the radiant light of truth. In August 2025, expect relationships to shift, motives to be tested, and internal realities to come to the surface, not as a surprise attack, but as an act of divine grace. Consider the story of Malik, a young worship leader whose voice stirred thousands, but whose private life was slowly unraveling. From the outside, everything seemed anointed: the crowds, the songs, the ministry. But behind the platform was a heart that had drifted from the presence of God. He had grown skilled at hiding his struggles behind spiritual language and had convinced himself that as long as the ministry was fruitful, the rest didn't matter. But in early 2025, his double life caught up with him. A series of personal and moral failures were exposed, not by gossip, not by scandal, but by a mentor who lovingly confronted him after sensing something was off in the spirit. The moment of revelation was painful. The shame nearly crushed him. But instead of running, Malik surrendered. He stepped down, submitted to restoration, and let God deal with the roots, pride, loneliness, unhealed trauma from his past. Now, just months later, he's walking in a new kind of freedom. Not the freedom of applause, but the freedom of alignment. He says, "I used to fear being exposed. Now I thank God I was, because I was drowning silently and I didn't even know it." His story is not rare. It's prophetic. It is what God is doing in this hour. He is saving people by unveiling them. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to reveal, and you cannot conquer what you keep in the dark. And what the enemy wants you to keep hidden in shame, God is calling into the light and grace. There are marriages that will be saved in August, not by pretending everything is fine, but by allowing the truth to surface. There are ministries that will be preserved, not through damage control, but through courageous confession. There are callings that will finally be unlocked, not because you worked harder, but because you stopped hiding. This divine revealing is not only individual, it is corporate. In governments, in institutions, in movements that have clothed corruption and charisma, truth will begin to rise like morning light. We will see that some of what looks stable was built on deception, and God in his justice is allowing the unmasking. It may shake some, it may shock many, but it will ultimately set the stage for what is real, what is holy, and what is enduring. We must not fear this season. We must not curse it. We must embrace it, because the greatest cleansing often comes through confrontation. And this confrontation is not about destruction. It is about realignment. If we will yield to the revealing, we will step into the kind of freedom that only comes from full surrender. There is power in the light. There is healing in the open. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for honesty. And when honesty meets grace, transformation is born. That's the kind of revival that cannot be staged. That's the kind of purity that cannot be faked. That's the kind of church God is raising up. A church without spot or wrinkle, not because it hides its stains, but because it brings them to the altar and lets the fire of God do what no performance ever could. In August 2025, let the revealing begin with you. Let the light in. Let the masks fall. Let the walls come down. Because on the other side of exposure is encounter. Real, raw, redeeming encounter with the God who sees you, knows you, and still calls you his own. And in that place of truth, you will find peace like a river, clarity like morning, and a freedom that no secret could ever give. In August 2025, God is preparing to open doors that no man, no system, no opposition, and no circumstance can shut. These are not ordinary doors. They are supernatural doors, strategic, divine, and appointed by heaven itself. These are doors of purpose, not just provision, doors of destiny, not just comfort. And these doors will not open by manipulation, striving, or human influence, but by alignment with the Spirit of God. Revelation 3:8 says, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. Notice it does not say that you placed it or that you forced it open. It says He placed it before you. That means the door is not earned by performance. It is accessed by obedience. In this month, God is calling His people to be positioned, not just physically, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, so that when the doors begin to open, we are ready to walk through them. These doors may not always look the way we imagine. They may not come packaged in ease or predictability, but they will be doors that lead us closer to the will of God for our lives. Some of these doors will appear in places of transition or even hardship. Right when you thought the season was ending, God will show you that it was really just beginning. These are Kairos moments, divine intersections where heaven meets earth, where the timeline of God interrupts the calendar of man, and where your now becomes saturated with eternity. But to enter these doors, you must be listening. You must be sensitive. You must be willing to leave behind what is familiar in order to step into what is ordained. Because every open door requires a step of faith. And often, what stands between us and the open door is not the devil, it's our own fear, our own comfort, our own unwillingness to leave behind what we've outgrown. Take the story of Darnell, a quiet, faithful man who had served as a high school math teacher for nearly 20 years. He loved his students, worked with integrity, and prayed daily that God would use his life. But deep in his heart, he always sensed there was something more, something beyond the classroom, something that would allow him to impact not just students, but communities. For years, he dismissed that whisper as wishful thinking. He had bills to pay, a routine to follow, and no obvious connections to anything else. But in April 2025, during a time of fasting and prayer, Darnell felt the Spirit of God stir him like never before. He didn't hear an audible voice, but the impression was unmistakable to prepare. The door is coming. Confused but obedient, he began organizing his life, paying off small debts, updating his resume, spending more time in prayer, and journaling the dreams he used to ignore. He didn't tell anyone, not even his wife, because he wanted to be sure it was God. Then in August, on what seemed like a normal Thursday, he was invited, out of nowhere, to speak at a local education summit. A panelist had dropped out last minute, and someone recommended Darnell. He almost declined, but something in his spirit told him to say yes. That one event became a divine catalyst. His 10-minute talk went viral locally, leading to invitations, partnerships, and eventually the founding of a nonprofit that now trains young minority educators and mentors students in underserved communities. All of it began with a single door. But that door did not swing open because Darnell chased success. It opened because he prepared in the quiet, obeyed the nudge, and was willing to walk through unfamiliar territory when God said now. His life is living proof that the doors God opens are not always loud, but they are always loaded with destiny. Many in this season will be tempted to force doors open with their own hands, by networking, by scheming, by pushing. But those are doors that exhaust you even if you manage to get through them. The ones God opens are carried by peace. They are not without challenge, but they are saturated with clarity. They confirm your identity, not compete with it. They require faith, yes, but not striving. God's open doors are always connected to your assignment. That's why in this season, you must be more connected to His voice than ever before. The enemy would love to distract you with false doors. Opportunities that look good but will drain your soul. Relationships that seem promising but pull you away from your purpose. Platforms that offer applause but silence your conviction. That's why discernment is critical. Not every open door is from God, but every door is from God will always lead you deeper into His will and closer to His heart. And often, these doors don't come when you feel most prepared. They come when you are most surrendered. God doesn't ask if you're ready in your own strength. He looks to see if you're yielded. Because open doors are not about proving yourself. They're about trusting Him. So prepare your spirit in August. Lay aside distractions. Clean your house spiritually. Be faithful where you are, but be watchful for what's coming. Some of these doors will be small hinges that swing open into wide spaces. Some will require leaving what's safe. Some will ask you to say yes before all the details make sense. But if you wait for perfect conditions, you may miss your moment. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for participation. He is looking for those who will hear the knock and open without hesitation. He is looking for those who have been faithful in the hallway, even when the door seemed locked. If that's you, don't lose heart. Your door is coming. And when it opens, don't delay, don't overthink, don't consult your fears. Step through it with boldness, because what lies beyond it is not just for your blessing. It is for His glory. August 2025 will be remembered as the month where new chapters began, not because of effort, but because of divine timing. And if you are watching with eyes of faith, you will see the door. You will know it's Him, and you will walk into a place you could never have reached on your own. Because when God opens a door, it's not just a way forward. It's a confirmation that He's already gone ahead of you. In this appointed season of August 2025, we are going to witness two simultaneous moves of God that will converge into one unstoppable wave. First, the rising of the remnant, and second, the divine acceleration of those who walk in obedience. These are not isolated events, but intertwined realities. The remnant is not a special elite. It is the humble few who refused to bow to compromise, who stayed hidden in prayer when the crowd chased applause, who chose holiness over hype and truth over trend. They may not have the spotlight, but they carry the flame. They are not perfect, but they are pure in heart. God is not looking for the most gifted in this hour. He is looking for the most surrendered. And in August 2025, He is calling the remnant to rise, not with noise, but with power, not with spectacle, but with substance. While the world grows darker, they will shine brighter. While others panic, they will operate in divine peace and clarity. They are the Daniels in the lion's den, the Esthers in the palace, the Elijahs confronting altars of deception, the Marys birthing miracles in obscurity. They've been in the cave, in the wilderness, in the shadows. But now the trumpet is sounding and God is calling them forward. The remnant will be bold, not because they are loud, but because they are rooted. They will speak truth that cuts through confusion and walk in authority that can't be bought or borrowed. They will not be motivated by platforms, applause, or popularity, but by presence, God's presence. This remnant understands that revival doesn't start in stadiums, it starts on the floor, in secret places soaked with tears, worship, and consecration. And this is precisely why God is raising them up, because they can carry what others would misuse. The remnant will not chase relevance. They will carry revelation. They won't echo the world's noise. They will release heaven's sound. And for those who feel unseen, forgotten, or passed over, hear this clearly. You were never overlooked. God was preserving you. Your obscurity was your protection, not your punishment. And now your time of revealing is here, not for your glory, but for His. But with this rise comes something just as powerful: acceleration. Divine acceleration, it is not the result of striving or ambition. It is what happens when obedience collides with God's perfect timing. In this month, those who have remained faithful, those who have planted in tears, labored in silence, and obeyed without understanding will experience a rapid movement, a divine quickening, where things that seemed delayed for years will suddenly come to pass. God is redeeming time. What should have taken a decade will be done in a year. What you thought was stuck will start to move. But this acceleration is not for the distracted or the half-hearted. It is reserved for those who are aligned. Acceleration without character leads to collapse, but acceleration with obedience leads to impact. God is not just speeding things up. He is bringing things together. Connections, resources, open doors, confirmations, all aligning in divine sequence. There are books that will be written in a month, businesses that will launch in weeks, ministries that will birth in days, healings that will happen instantly, restorations that will feel like a dream. But you must be ready. You must be listening. You must be moving in sync with the Spirit, because divine acceleration doesn't wait for indecision. It responds to obedience. This is not the hour to debate God's instruction. This is the hour to move when He says move. Because the momentum coming in August will not be man-made. It will be heaven-sent. There's a story of a woman named Lydia that illustrates this convergence of remnant identity and acceleration with stunning clarity. Lydia was a single mother who had spent years working quietly in social work, helping at-risk youth in her city. She was faithful, compassionate, but largely unnoticed. Every night after putting her daughter to bed, she would pray, journal, and worship, not for recognition, but because she couldn't live without God's presence. She had no connections, no platform, but she carried vision, clear God-breathed vision. For 10 years, she had dreamt of creating a faith-based mentoring program for teenage girls, but the doors never seemed to open. Then, in the early weeks of August 2025, she received an unexpected phone call. A friend of a friend had passed her name to a city leader who was looking to fund a youth program, and out of nowhere, she was invited to present her vision. Within a month, her program was not only funded, but fully staffed and launched in 3 school districts. News outlets covered it. Testimonies poured in. The impact was immediate and explosive. When asked how it happened so fast, Lydia simply said, God was waiting for the right moment. I just had to be ready. She had been hidden for a decade, but when God said now, everything shifted. That's what acceleration looks like. That's what remnant readiness feels like. It's not about being the most talented. It's about being the most faithful in the unseen seasons so that when the suddenly of God comes, you don't miss it. This is what August 2025 holds. A rising and a rushing. A call and a commissioning. For the remnant, this is your moment not to blend in, but to break through. For the obedient, this is your time. not to hesitate, but to move. And for those who feel too broken, too late, too underqualified, remember, God always chooses those the world overlooks. He uses the weak to confound the strong. He raises the forgotten to lead the future. You don't need to be known. You need to be yielded. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be available. The fire is falling on altars, not stages. The wind is blowing where there's surrender, not strategy. And if you're ready to rise as part of the remnant and walk in the rhythm of his acceleration, then this month will not just change your life, it will shift generations. Because when the remnant rises and the obedient accelerate, revival doesn't just visit, it takes root. Beloved, we are not entering August. We are entering an assignment. Heaven is moving. Angels are aligning. The Spirit is stirring. Don't sleep in this hour. Don't get distracted. Don't let fear steal your faith. Prepare your house. Clean your altar. Open your ears. Lift your eyes, because God has spoken, and when he speaks, mountains move. This is your month to rise, to run, to reign. So stand strong, child of God. August 2025 is not the end. It is the beginning of your divine unfolding.